If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
What it costs. I want to know what the truth is. And I hope that people, my son, anybody, if my name comes up, whether you like me, whether you agree with me or not, at least you can respect the fact that he's on a quest for truth. He's on a quest for truth.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
The only reason why we're making progress on these projects is because of your support. You truly are my family. I really want to thank you for helping me to continue see Rob's legacy and vision come to life. You are the ones that have made this possible. Thank you.
Picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Well, there you go. Shortest presentation I've ever done. Thank you very much. No, right? There you go. First thing you need to realize when you get into this research is, look, we used to be you. If you're just getting into this and you're really skeptical and you don't believe in it, look, we get it. We were there. We were you. None of us belongs to the Flat Earth Society. Let's say it out loud together. Ready? None of us belongs to the Flat Earth Society. So if this is new to you, okay, don't go to the Flat Earth Society to look at what are these people about. They didn't sponsor this event. They have nothing to do with it. Neither do we. Speaking of, no one believes in the upward floating disk theory of gravity. Media, if you're in the room and you missed this morning, pay attention, look at the screen, please. We do not believe this. Okay? I can't tell you how many times I've seen news reports and stuff coming out saying, oh, that's what flat earthers believe. No, we don't. You can't just insert flat earth into the Copernican model of the universe. You see memes like this all the time, like, flat earthers be, yeah, you know, sun 93 million miles, right? Mercury, Venus, pancake! No, we don't believe that. There's plenty of others out there doing it, the same thing. All the news media does it. Rational Wiki, on their flat earth entry, it says it's basically this, and they got the same picture. No, that's not true. And number 5, for Christians, the Bible is a flat earth book from cover to cover. I'm sorry, it just is. So that's part 1 of my presentation. I'm just going to go through this real quick. Others will be talking about it this weekend. Of course, if you're familiar with my work, I've got plenty of stuff on this online. But essentially, when you look through the scriptures, I appreciate Logos Bible Software. The scholars over there at Logos Bible Software do not believe the earth is flat. Say that again with me. They do not believe the earth is flat. Okay? They don't believe it. But they believe that the people who wrote the Bible did, which creates an interesting problem for them. It's like, look, you just make a really articulate case for this is what the words mean, this is what they clearly believed, and then you say you don't believe it. So I don't know what's up with that. But this is their depiction of the ancient Hebrew conception of the universe. I've gone a little deeper. This is not thus saith the Lord, okay? This is thus thinketh Rob. I'm not telling you this is where you live. I'm telling you this is what I see in my mind when I look at the ancient texts. As an artist, this is what I come up with. And according to all the references you see there, we see that we live in a self-contained 3-tiered system of heaven, earth, the underworld. There is a solid firmament, dome, vault over us, according to the text you see there. Yahuwah is the pronunciation of the Tetragrammaton that I've chosen. I don't get into fights with people about this. Some say Yahweh, King James says Jehovah, Yehovah. Look, we're talking about 4 consonants, and we're doing the best we can. The pronunciation I've landed on is Yahuwah, so if you hear that, that's what I'm referring to as the name of God. Yahuwah's throne sits above the heavens and the waters, according to the text you see there. The earth is inscribed in a circular, flat fashion into something with 4 corners and surrounded by water, according to the text you see there. The sun, moon, and stars are in the firmament, and by the way, all the stars are going to fall to earth, according to Isaiah, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, the Son of God himself, Peter, and John. The stars are falling to earth. We got big problems if Betelgeuse is headed our way, and followed by Andromeda, right? Somebody's lying to us here. And I'm not prepared to say that it's Isaiah, Yeshua, Peter, or John. There are floodgates, windows in the firmament. Earth is a geocentric, stationary world set on pillars. Indeed, from Genesis to Revelation, the earth is consistently described by Holy Spirit-inspired authors as fixed and not moving, spinning, orbiting, etc. Circular with edges, corners, pillars, foundations, etc. Under a dome within which the sun, moon, and stars were placed on day 4. Inside that structure that I showed you a minute ago is something that like the footstool of God right there. And I say, look, which model is a better fit for a stationary world set on a firm foundation of pillars under a solid dome within which the sun, moon, and stars move and which will accommodate all the stars falling to earth? I think it's a pretty easy answer when you look at that. Now, of course, those who disagree, who think the Bible it doesn't say this, they only got 2 scriptures. 2. And actually, neither one of them work for them. They have Isaiah's circle of the earth and Job hangs the earth on nothing. Neither one of them work for them. Hangs the earth on nothing. The model that they believe is the earth in the Copernican model is literally hung on the gravity of the sun. So you can't even use that one. And circle doesn't mean ball, doesn't mean sphere. For me, though, it really was the firmament. That was the one that just, man, it sealed the deal in more ways than one. Unquestionably, the thing is hard, firm, supporting the waters above, attached to the earth, within which Yahuwah placed the sun, moon, and stars, and upon which his throne sits. Clearly, this is a very important issue to Yahuwah. The only model that accommodates every aspect of the firmament is the circular, enclosed world model. The only way around this is to grossly misrepresent the scriptures, yanking the true meanings of the words used out of context and fantasizing about definitions for those words, which are not even remotely supported by the text nor the historical context in which the scriptures were written. Interestingly enough, I think this was just last week, some news articles came out. Our understanding of the universe could be fundamentally wrong, scientists have said. Newly released data from the Planck, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, telescope, which aimed to take very precise readings of the shape, size, and ancient history of our universe, suggests that there could be something wrong in our physics, according to a new paper. The issue could be an indication of a crisis in cosmology that may be as yet unrealized because of problems with our understanding of the shape of the universe, the authors of the new paper write. Scientists have long been convinced the universe was shaped like a sheet of paper. Interesting. They think the universe is flat, so why are they getting so upset about us when we're talking about the earth being flat? But a new paper suggests that could be wrong, and it's not flat, but rather closed. The authors of the new paper say that if it is correct, that the data from the telescope there suggests we are inside a closed universe. Interesting. Other articles coming out, same thing. This was like all just last week, so perfect setup for us. It reminds me of a quote I heard quite some time ago by an individual named Robert Jastrow. For the scientist who has lived by his faith in the power of reason, the story ends like a bad dream. He has scaled the mountain of ignorance. He is about to conquer the highest peak. As he pulls himself over the final rock, he is greeted by a band of theologians who have been sitting there for centuries. I think that's exactly what's starting to happen in mainstream science. Now, what I hear from people all the time, especially people who don't agree with what I'm saying here, is, Rob, you're making Christians look stupid. Have you guys heard that before? This is making Christians look stupid. Okay, if that's your big concern, right? If that's what you're so concerned about, I'm going to help you out here. All right, here's a news flash for you. We already look stupid. To pretty much everybody else out there that don't believe the same way we do. I mean, here are just a few of the crazy things we already believe in. A 6-day creation. They tell us the universe is almost 14 billion years old. To say that it was created in 6 literal days, completely absurd. We believe in 2 magic trees, a talking snake. Moses split the Red Sea with a staff that used to be a snake that could eat other staffs that turned into snakes. Interesting. A dude with a talking donkey like on Shrek. The walls of Jericho come tumbling down with trumpet blasts. Joshua commanded the sun and the moon to stand still. Wow, that's pretty crazy. The length of a man's hair gave him superhuman strength. See, I'm growing my hair out. A few guys chilling out in a fiery furnace, remaining unharmed. A dude spends 3 days and 3 nights inside a fish, then gets out and starts preaching. Here's a big one for you. A Savior born of a virgin who walked on water, did miracles, died, rose again in 3 days, hung out for a few more weeks, then flew up into the sky like Superman with the promise of returning on a flying horse followed by a floating city. There are a lot more that I just couldn't fit on one slide. Okay? So if your big concern is looking stupid, just embrace the madness. But, I knocked on our side of it a little bit here. Let's look at some really stupid things. Let's look at modern cosmology and science that I believe Scripture rightly defines as falsely so-called. Let's look at real stupid. Have you ever heard of the game, you ever play the game Whisper Down the Lane, Whisper Down the Line, right? Who is most likely to have the truth, the one closest or the one farthest away from the original source information? Closest, right? So the further back we go, we see almost unanimously across the ancient world, they believe we are on a circular, still flat earth, set on pillars under a dome within which are the sun, moon, and stars. Now, there are variants within the cultures, but essentially you got the same model. Flash forward to the end of the line, and I heard we live on a spinning heliocentric ball in an ever-expanding universe. Something changed down the line, right? Now, when we think about the ancient past, who's smarter, us or them? I mean, the further back we go in time, the more we start seeing stuff like this. Megalithic structures and all kinds of stuff that people just can't, even today, with all our modern science and technology, we can't figure out how they did it. So what's the solution? Aliens must have done it. I mean, think about it. We're so smart, we think we came from monkeys, and we don't even know what gender we are anymore. I mean, how smart are we? Modern science is telling us that. Gender's fluid. No, I got news for you. It's not what's between your ears, it's what's between your legs that determines your gender. For thousands of years, 6,000 years of recorded human history, nobody, regardless of race, color, creed, religion, doesn't matter. Baby pops out, got something hanging down there, great. Hey, it's a boy. No, it's a girl, that's awesome. Right? If you want to get scientific, got an X and Y chromosome, boy, got 2X girl. The fact that I actually have to explain this in the 21st century is proof of entropy. We're not getting better. We're getting worse. Way worse. Days of Noah, yeah, way worse. The only reason they think that way is because of evolution. So let's go after that. Let's talk about evolution and the big questions of how did we get here. Here's a video that explains more or less the current view of modern cosmology.
The idea that God created the universe went largely unchallenged until the Middle Ages, when scientists made a sacrilegious suggestion based on their observations. The sun, not the Earth, was at the center of the universe.
It was a paradigm shift. There is now another way to explain the naturally occurring phenomena around us, and this is science.
Since the Middle Ages, scientists have developed sophisticated new theories about the enormity of the universe and our place in it. Theories that often have no room for God.
Many phenomena have appeared mysterious or miraculous or magical. And then through the process of science, we've eventually understood them. Scientists gradually realized that the sun really is just one star among a multitude of stars in a gigantic galaxy, having hundreds of billions of such stars. And all this was created in a Big Bang 13.7 billion years ago.
But while scientific theories, observations, and experiments tell us where we are in the cosmos, they don't answer the eternal questions: why we're here, and who, if anyone, created us.
The amazing thing is that every atom in your body came from a star that exploded. And the atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand. It really is the most poetic thing I know about physics. You are all stardust. You couldn't be here if stars hadn't exploded, because the elements, the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron, all the things that matter for evolution weren't created at the beginning of time. They're created in the nuclear furnaces of stars, and the only way they can get into your body is if the stars were kind enough to explode. So forget Jesus. The stars died so that you could be here today, okay? And anyway.
By the end of the 1920s, astronomer Edwin Hubble, working with the large 100-inch telescope atop Mount Wilson outside Los Angeles, had established that our galaxy was only one of many galaxies in the universe.
When we look out at other galaxies, on average, they're moving away from us. And those that are twice as far away are moving twice as fast. And those that are 3 times as far away are moving 3 times as fast. And of course, that makes us look like we're the center of the universe.
Such a condition would imply that we occupy a unique position in the universe, analogous, in a sense, to the ancient conception of a central Earth. This hypothesis cannot be disproved, but it is unwelcome and would only be accepted as a last resort in order to save the phenomena. Therefore, we disregard this possibility. The unwelcome position of a favored location must be avoided at all costs. Such a favored position is intolerable.
Several decades ago, we found a problem so great that it was brushed under the carpet for many a decade. And this is the fact that galaxies spin too fast. In fact, 10 times too fast. By rights, the galaxy should fly apart. Therefore, scientists said that we have to have dark matter, a halo of matter that surrounds the galaxy and holds the galaxy together.
And what have they discovered? Absolutely nothing. Zilch.
What is a little bit perturbing is that after 50 years, we still haven't found what the dark matter is. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean they're not there. It just means they're harder to find than we thought.
We look out in the universe, and 85% of all the gravity that's out there has some mysterious, unknown source. We add up all the stars, the galaxies, the planets, the comets, the black holes, the dark clouds, everything out there that we can see, touch, smell, or taste. And it doesn't add up to give us the gravity that we see operating in this universe. So really, we should be calling it the dark force, because we don't know if it's made of matter. It could be a profound misnomer, sending people off in thought directions that might not really be the right path. So dark matter is just simply what we call this thing about which we know nothing, responsible for 85% of the gravity of the cosmos. It is the longest standing unsolved problem in modern astrophysics. Dark matter, dark energy. Everything we know about the universe, what we're made of, galaxies, stars, planets, that's all right here. So, according to this chart, we are 96% stupid.
So the problem with cosmology is that we keep inventing theories, ad hoc theories, to try to explain the data, such as inflation, dark matter, dark energy, and so on, just to keep patching the theory up.
There is a crisis in cosmology. Usually in science, if we're off by a factor of 2 or a factor of 10, we call that horrible. We say something's wrong with the theory. We're off by a factor of 10. However, in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120. That is 1 with 120 zeros after it. This is the largest mismatch between theory and experiment in the history of science.
A very large number of universes, perhaps even an infinite number, could in principle exist in a vast hyperspace.
We can understand the idea of hyperspace by comparing it to a mug of beer.
Beer. The beer mug would be the hyperspace, and the bubbles would be these individual universes. The bubbles in a beer mug are all physically about the same. But suppose they span a range of properties. Some of them might have carbon and oxygen, and stars and gravity, and others don't. We would be in one of the ones that leads to a rich, complex universe culminating with life as we know it.
If there are an infinite number of other universes, the fine-tuning that seems to be present in ours isn't an example of God's plan, but rather the law of statistics. Most of these universes wouldn't naturally develop in ways that fostered intelligent life, but a few would.
So then the explanation for the specialness of the universe is that we are winners in a gigantic cosmic lottery. It stands to reason that we couldn't be living and discussing this
in a universe that was hostile to life. Only the bio-friendly ones get populated with thinking beings.
Having a multitude of universes is actually quite a simple and natural consequence of some of the most favored models for the birth and early evolution of our universe. It's kind of like stars and planets. As long as you have the capacity to make one, it's easy to make lots of them.
Oh, really?
Wow! Beer mug hyperspace multi-bubble verse. Really?
Beer.
Seriously? They're farting out beer bubble universes. Okay? That's what they're doing. Hey, I got an idea. Yep. Multi-beer bubble universe. And they call that science. And they make fun of us? Really? Yeah, I'm not going to take that from them anymore. I'm not going to sit here and let people who think they came from monkeys out of a beer bubble universe ridicule me for looking into what I'm looking into and considering, a possibility. If you guys can think about beer bubble universes, then I can think about a snow globe. Fair enough? Okay, let's move on.
That's what they're calling science. So again, Christian, if you're worried about looking stupid, look at what they believe. Wow. It just gets crazier and crazier. I mean, talking about being off by 10 to the 120th power. Really? I think Nikola Tesla had it right, and he was starting to see it already in his day, in the beginning of the 20th century, right? Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. That's exactly what's happening. And you're seeing more and more articles popping up like this. This is just from a few months ago, April 30th, 2019, Scientific American. Cosmology has some big problems. If you read the article, it talks about, this individual right here says, compounding this problem, most observations of the universe occur experientially and indirectly. Pay attention here. Today's space telescopes provide no direct view of anything. They produce measurements through an interplay of theoretical predictions and pliable parameters in which the model that they've concocted in their head is involved every step of the way. The framework literally frames the problem. It determines where and how to observe. And so, despite the advanced technologies and methods involved, the profound limitations to the endeavor also increase the risk of being led astray by the kind of assumptions that cannot be calculated. He goes on to say, a key piece of the Big Bang paradigm was criticized by one of the theory's original proponents for having become indefensible as a scientific theory. Why? Because inflation theory relies on ad hoc contrivances to accommodate almost any data, and because this proposed physical field is not based on anything with empirical justification. This is probably because a crucial function of inflation is to bridge the transition from an unknowable Big Bang to a physics we can recognize today. So is it science or a convenient invention? He concludes his article by admitting, quote, in order to maintain a mathematically unified theory valid for the entire universe, we must accept that 95% of our cosmos is furnished by completely unknown elements and forces for which we have no empirical evidence whatsoever. I just summarize that by saying, you know what is taught today as fact is really nothing more than unproven ad hoc theories based on presupposition derived from outlandish conjecture, which itself was contrived from sheer fantasy, all of which ends up beautifully illustrated by the hands of artists and published in textbooks as self-evident truth. That's what science has turned into today. All right, so let's move from the origin of the cosmos to issues of the earth and talking about the age of the earth and so forth. How old is the earth and how do we know? Well, for a long time, there's been sort of this war between the ideas of uniformitarianism versus the older ideas of catastrophism. Charles Lyell's multi-volume Principles of Geology was published in the early 1830s. Its subtitle was An Attempt to Explain the Former Changes of the Earth's Surface by Reference to Causes Now in Operation. He was one of the major advocates of an idea known as uniformitarianism, that the Earth was shaped entirely by slow-moving forces still in operation today, acting over a very long period of time. This stood in direct opposition to catastrophism, which described geological changes coming about as the result of abrupt, violent changes. Thus, characters like Charles Lyell looked at the stripes in the rocks, right, and he just assumed millions of years. No proof, nothing. That's the best. That's his best explanation right there. But is it really the best explanation for what we see and how accurate are our dating methods to begin with? I'm reminded of an analogy Kent Hovind used to give, talking about a creationist and an evolutionist looking out over the Grand Canyon. One of them looks at the Grand Canyon and says, wow, look at what the Colorado River did over millions of years. And the creationist says, wow, look what the flood of Noah did in a couple days. You know, your preconceived bias, right, determines how you look at the thing. Now, I already told you I come from a biblical worldview, so let's have a look at what the Bible has to say as a more plausible explanation for some of these things. And interestingly enough, as a young person, I stumbled across the works of this guy right here. How many of you ever heard of Immanuel Velikovsky? Anybody? Not a lot of people here. A couple of interesting books right there, Worlds in Collision and Earth in Upheaval. Those two books actually were instrumental in leading my dad to Christ in a bar in Vietnam. A guy was selling books there. He got those books, started reading them, and my dad was more like an agnostic at the time. But it got him to begin to question the paradigm and evolutionary thought and whatnot, and eventually he became a Christian himself. So those two books have quite a bit of meaning to me on a personal level. But here's a little video I cut together from some of the creation ministries talking about a better explanation for the geological features and the dating of the Earth.
What about the age of the Earth? Isn't there evidence for millions of years? And how do we understand all that? Well, first of all, let's look at what the Bible says. If you take the days of creation as ordinary days, and you take all those genealogies in Scripture, if you add it all up, 5 days before Adam, from Adam to Abraham, and then you add up from Abraham until today, you get about 6,000 years. Now, what about all the dating methods that seem to indicate billions of years? Actually, there are hundreds and hundreds of dating methods that you can use to age date things on the Earth. See, one creation scientist I know makes this statement. He says 90% of the methods you can use to age date things on the Earth contradict the billions of years. Only 10% even seem to give the billions of years. But all dating methods have fallible assumptions.
Nearly every textbook in Science magazine teaches that the Earth is billions of years old, and the primary dating method used for determining this is what is called radioisotope dating, or radiometric dating. Now, this is a reliable method for measuring absolute ages of rocks and the age of the Earth, right? First off, many scientists now regard the age of the Earth to be between 4.55 and 4.6 billion years old. Okay. So if this method is reliable and accurate, why the 50 million year discrepancy? That seems like a lot. But let's get into some details here and see what's going on. Keep in mind that there's all kinds of scientific jargon on this topic, and so we'll just present a very straightforward, simplified version. Radiometric dating is the process of estimating the ages of rocks based on the decay into other kinds of atoms. For instance, uranium will radioactively decay through a series of steps until it becomes the stable element called lead. The original element is called the parent element, and the end result is called the daughter element. Radioisotope dating is commonly used to date igneous rocks, rocks which formed when hot molten material cooled and solidified. The dating clock started when the rock cooled. During the molten state, it is assumed that the intense heat forced any gaseous daughter elements to escape. It is assumed that once the rock cooled, no more atoms escaped, and any daughter element now found in the rock is a result of radioactive decay since that rock formed. The decay rate is measured in terms of half-life. That is the length of time it takes half of the remaining atoms of a radioactive parent element to decay. Now, of course, that can be measured in a laboratory, and it is assumed that since we know the decay rate, we can calculate backwards and come up with the age of the rock. But is that all there is to it? Here's where it gets tricky. It's true we can measure a decay rate using observational science, but there's another kind of science that is required to accurately calculate dates for rocks, and that is what we call historical science. Historical science deals with the things in the past, and therefore it cannot be repeated and tested. Dating methods require both types of science, because in order to get accurate rock dates, one would have to accurately know both the decay rate and the initial conditions of the rock sample, right? Since radioisotope dating uses both types of science, we can't directly measure the ages of rocks. There are assumptions involved. For instance, how do we know what the initial conditions were in the rock sample? How do we know the amounts of parent or daughter elements now in that sample haven't been altered by other processes in the past? How does someone know the decay rate has remained constant since the rock formed? The answer is they don't. Let's simplify here and talk about a typical hourglass. Let's say you walk into a room and you see an hourglass with sand at the top and sand at the bottom, and some sand sprinkling from the top chamber to the bottom. Well, observational science would allow us to see and measure the sand, and then calculate how long the hourglass has been running, right? We could make our sand measurements and then calculate when the hourglass was turned over, right? Well, those calculations could be wrong, because we may have failed to consider some major assumptions, like, was there any sand at the bottom when the hourglass was turned over? Has any sand been added or taken out of the hourglass? Has the sand always been falling at a constant rate? Since we did not observe the initial conditions when the hourglass started, and we haven't been watching the sand all the time since then, we must make assumptions. All three of those assumptions can affect our time calculations. Now, of course, there's more to understanding all of this, but enough said.
The Earth's surface is scarred by deep canyons, cut into solid rock. But how did they form? A little bit of water over a long time, or a little bit of time with a lot of water? Modern rivers don't generally cut downward into solid rock, so today's river erosion seems incapable of explaining rock canyons. The Great Flood of the Bible, however, provides a possible explanation for such canyons. On May 18, 1980, Mount St. Helens, located 95 miles south of Seattle, Washington, erupted. The eruption was triggered by an earthquake centered beneath the mountain that measured 5.1 on the Richter scale. The lateral blast swept out the north side of Mount St. Helens at 300 miles per hour. With temperatures as high as 660 degrees Fahrenheit and the power of 24 megatons of thermal energy, it snapped 100-year-old trees like toothpicks and stripped them of their bark.
Now eventually lava flows formed a new dome, 5 new domes actually, all of which were destroyed by subsequent eruptions. But the 6th dome that formed between October 1980 and 86 is what you see today. It's composed of 2.6 billion cubic feet of lava, and it's quite young, having finished forming just over 30 years ago. Well, in 1996, geologists sent rocks from the lava dome to be radiometrically dated. Now, they used a method called potassium argon. Well, scientists measured how much potassium and how much argon are in the rock, and they calculate the age of the rock, right? But creation scientists have pointed out for years that there are some major problems with radiometric dating. One big one is all of the assumptions that it's grounded on. You must assume that the half-life is constant and that it never varies. You have to assume that there was no contamination. For example, no argon was present in the sample before the decay began. Well, that's a lot of unprovable assumptions. Now, if radiometric dating and the assumptions that it's founded on were accurate, well then Mount St. Helens rocks should have yielded very young ages. After all, the rock was merely about a decade old. You see, the problem is they didn't. The rock gave an age of 350,000 years. When they dated the minerals within the rock, the problem got much worse. They gave dates of 2.4 million years. This is for a 10-year-old rock. Now, Mount St. Helens highlighted that we shouldn't blindly trust the dates given by radiometric dating. The assumptions clearly aren't accurate, so the dates that they give are also inaccurate. Instead of trusting a method that doesn't even give correct ages for rocks of known age, well, maybe we should trust the Bible's history, which tells us that our Earth is around 6,000 years old.
Before the famous eruption at Mount St. Helens, scientists were mostly familiar with slow-acting examples of geologic change. But at Mount St. Helens, geologists watched the Earth's surface change quite rapidly. Icebergs were buried in hot avalanche material. They melted and formed badlands in days. Eruptions on May 18 and June 10 produced fine layers in hours. On June 10, mud flows cut zigzag canyons 100 feet deep in soft sand and mud, complete with perpendicular side canyons. Canyons that are reminiscent of the geography of Grand Canyon, only 40 times smaller and clearly produced within hours. At Mount St. Helens, a single mud flow off the mountain carved Engineers Canyon out of soft sediment in a single day, 100 feet deep. And the same thing even happened in solid rock. A series of mud flows created Lewitt and Step canyons on the front face of Mount St. Helens, cutting hundreds of feet into solid rock over just a few years. Grand Canyon is a good example where we find evidence of catastrophic forces at work. Upstream is evidence of huge lakes. These lakes would never have formed if the canyon were already open below them. However, if these lakes had formed from rains after Noah's flood, And if the pressure of these waters broke through and carved through the recently deposited sediments, then we would expect to find surge deposits downstream. Below Grand Canyon, this is precisely what we find. Evidence of a lot of water cutting over a little bit of time. Even though Mount St. Helens is a very small catastrophe compared to the flood or the major catastrophes immediately following the flood, it provides a better clue to what happened in those times than the slow geologic processes which are most commonly seen in the present.
All right. Now that we've established that the Big Bang is complete and utter nonsense, and our dating methods are also full of crap, let's take a look at the absurdity of biological evolution. This is a typical description of biological evolution you might see, charts and things of like this, made out of a blob or in the image of God. Darwin and the standard model of evolution, right? How many of you have heard that we share 98% of our genome with chimpanzees? Have you guys heard that before, taught in school? You know, that's one of the reasons they say we evolved from apes, because we supposedly share 98% of our genome with chimps. Okay, the clip I'm about to show you is not from a creationist. It's from an evolutionary-minded group of people describing how they got those numbers. Check it out.
When researchers sat down to compare the chimp and human genomes, those single-letter differences were easy to tally, but the big mismatch sections weren't. For example, if a genetic paragraph, thousands of letters long, appears twice in a human scroll, but only once in its chimp counterpart, should that second human copy count as thousands of changes, or just one? And what about identical paragraphs that appear in both genomes, but in different places, or in reverse order, or broken up into pieces? Rather than monkey around with these difficult questions, the researchers simply excluded all the large mismatch sections, a whopping 1.3 billion letters in all, and performed a letter-by-letter comparison on the remaining 2.4 billion, which turned out to be 98.77% identical. So, yes, we share 99% of our DNA with chimps if we ignore 18% of their genome and 25% of ours.
Yeah, that makes sense. What? That wouldn't make sense in any other context. Nobody would buy that, right? Wow, okay. And this is why more and more scientists, even secular scientists, are starting to steer away from the standard Darwinian model. It's so full of holes and assumptions. In fact, when Francis Crick and James Watson discovered DNA, they immediately knew this could not have evolved by random chance mutation. So what is their solution? Aliens! Aliens must have done it, right? The late Nobel Prize winner, Professor Francis Crick, along with British chemist Leslie Oriel, proposed the theory of directed panspermia in 1973. A co-discoverer of the double helical structure of DNA molecule, Crick found it impossible that the complexity of DNA could have evolved naturally. So good thing Giorgio wasn't around back then, right? Panspermia, I don't know, therefore aliens. The idea of panspermia was born. The idea of ancient aliens must have seeded our world, kick-started evolution. And this is now becoming the new standard. Thus, when asked if intelligent design was a plausible solution to the evolution of man, this is what Professor Richard Dawkins had to say.
It sounds very laudable to teach the controversy, to teach both theories, but there aren't two theories. There's only one theory around. There's only one game in town as far as serious science is concerned. Of course, you get negative reactions from creationists, but who cares about creationists? They don't know anything.
We're Johnny-come-latelys. We live in the cosmic boondocks. We emerged from microbes and muck. Apes are our cousins.
You don't believe that the Earth is round only if you're an astronaut. You don't believe Napoleon existed only if you're a historian. You believe these things because they're facts, proved by evidence. Evolution is also a demonstrated fact. The truth really is out there. It's not a matter of opinion. You are extremely illogical.
I'm skeptical of the claim.
I'm skeptical.
I'm skeptical.
Yes,
skeptical.
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 Skeptical. Skeptical
of claims
for the ability of random mutations
and natural selection
to account for
the complexity.
The complexity.
To account for the complexity of life.
careful examination
of the evidence
for Darwinian theory
should be encouraged.
So we have a crisis in cosmology and apparently a crisis in biology going on at the same time. You know, if biological evolution here requires the intervention of intelligence, who created those other beings? You see, all they're doing is pushing the problem further out. You know, eventually you got to get to a first cause. And ideally, you really got to get to how does a first self-replicating cell manifest itself out of non-living material, right? I mean, you got to get, you can't just go to chimps. You got to go further back than that, right? Well, I mean, they're forced to go on faith. Ooh, that's that crazy religious word, right? Because they have no evidence for what they're talking about. And yet, over and over and over again, we're seeing stuff like this, aren't we? Article after article talking about other Earth-like planets out there. You know, there could be 1 billion Earths in our galaxy alone, 40 billion, 8.8 billion. Oh, and incidentally, they're finding all these Earths by looking through telescopes millions of light years away, or even thousands of light years away. Both are absurd. You know how far a light year is? Yeah, it's nearly 6 trillion miles. They're telling us they're spotting black holes 55 million light years away. If they got telescopes that powerful, turn the telescope on the moon. I want to count the rivets on the buggy. Or shut up. You're full of crap. There's no way you're looking that far out there, but they're always pumping it in your head. There's other Earths-like out there because they have to. They have to prop up their theory, you know, that there are ancient aliens out there. Over and over and over again. Well, this next video shows how life forming from non-living matter is simply impossible, whether we're talking about here on Earth or elsewhere in the cosmos.
What is faith? It is belief in the absence of evidence. Now, I don't propose to tell anybody what to believe, but for me, believing when there's no compelling evidence is a mistake. The idea is to withhold belief until there is compelling evidence.
When I talk to the public about astronomy and this question of life elsewhere in the universe, the most commonly held viewpoint I encounter is surely it's impossible that we could be alone in the universe. After all, how could it be amongst this unimaginable number of opportunities for life to get going? It only happened once, only here. And this is a viewpoint held by many scientists and talking heads in popular media too.
Do you think that there is life outside of Earth, intelligent life in the universe?
Absolutely, there is life elsewhere, and almost certainly intelligent life. It has to be. The odds are just overwhelming. There's 200 billion stars in this galaxy. Well, now it looks like every star has about 10 planets. So there's almost certainly intelligent life.
I assume it's the most frequently asked question, are we alone?
My best guess is that the universe is teeming with life.
There's surely other civilizations out there in the universe. There are 350 billion galaxies out there in the universe.
But an argument based solely on statistical grounds comes with a fatal flaw. And that is that it is perfectly plausible that the probability of life starting from scratch, which we call abiogenesis, is a number which is so small that it greatly outweighs the number of opportunities, the number of worlds out there in the universe for life to get going. For example, if the probability of life beginning is 1 in septillion, say, then the case for a crowded universe evaporates. What is the probability of abiogenesis? At a basic level, we certainly know that no lab experiment here on Earth has ever succeeded in creating what we would call life from chemical broths with conditions similar to that of the early Earth. This was first famously attempted by Stanley Miller and Harold Urey in 1952 at the University of Chicago. In what is now often considered the classic abiogenesis experiment, they exposed a beaker of water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen to gentle heating and electrical sparks which emulated lightning. Now, many organic molecules were produced in this experiment, including 20 amino acids. But neither in that experiment, nor in any experiment since, have we observed the spontaneous production of complex proteins, nor DNA, nor indeed something crawling out of the test tube.
Language is recognizable. even if you can't read it. Take Morse code. It has 3 basic parts: dots, dashes, and spaces. These 3 simple parts are combined to represent letters. There are 26 letters in the English language, which are combined to form over 400,000 words. Those words can, of course, be combined into an infinite number of sequences or sentences. There is evidence that DNA represents a language. 4 basic units, called nucleotides, combine into a code for 20 amino acids. From those few amino acids, the body forms more than 100,000 proteins. Even if you can't read DNA, it still has all the hallmarks of language, a language that biologists are just now beginning to crack. Every tiny cell in our body is packed with 3 feet of DNA, 3 billion nucleotides. The similarity between DNA and human language is uncanny. In addition to codes, both use similar techniques to pack, access, rearrange, copy, and translate information. DNA seems to represent a language, the language of life. An unseen author, the creator of heaven and earth, has left a testimony of his existence in the DNA of every living thing.
For those who believe in evolution, they believe that matter gave rise to life. You've got to understand, matter had to give rise to zillions and zillions and zillions and zillions of bits of information. And over millions of years, information keeps coming from matter, new information to form all the different kinds of animals and plants, zillions of bits of information. You know what's interesting? We've never seen matter produce one bit of brand new information that never previously existed, not even one bit.
When one looks at a typical textbook, one will see some prehistoric pond and molecules, and those molecules coming together and forming a cell, and those cells coming together and some slithering creature coming out of this pond. That is fallacious. There is no truth in that.
This is a cell. What is the origin of life? How do you get a cell like this? What is the origin of something like this? This is an amazing machine. A cell is an amazing machine. It's not just a blob of protoplasm. Every day it gets harder to have the origin of life, to come up with a scenario, because the origin of life becomes more and more complex every day. A cell is a factory. It has the lipid bilayer, which is extremely selective to let certain things in and not other things. It has all of this substructure in here, these little areas where energy is made in here. It has these microtubules which can form so you can move matter from point A to point B. If you go to a factory, what you see is these overhead hanging machines that are moving materials from point A to point B. In these systems, and the way they do this is they build these racks, but same thing happens in a cell. You get these microtubules to move material from point A to point B, and then as soon as the material is done moving, the microtubule breaks down and then assembles some other place. You say, well, why doesn't it leave it there? Because then the cell would become too rigid. So it just rebuilds it. It's just amazing factory what's happening in a cell. This is what we have to make. If we want to have origin of life, you got to start here. You don't start here. You start with a single cell. Just build a single cell. That's what we have to do in origin of life. Nobody has ever done this. If you've been taught that simple forms of life have been made, that is a lie that you are believing. Somebody told you a lie. That has never been done. Organisms care about life. Molecules don't care. Chemistry, on the contrary, is utterly indifferent to life. Without a biologically derived entity acting upon them, molecules have never been shown to evolve toward life. Never. Molecules don't care about life. They don't know anything about moving toward life. They have no brain. Organisms want to move toward life and keep life going. Molecules don't care about life. Nobody has ever seen molecules assemble toward life. Never. It doesn't happen without a biological entity working on them. I asked all my colleagues, can you show me an example of this? Of molecules moving toward order, moving toward an ordered system where you have a non-regular assembly. Regular assembly is like A or AB. That you can get pure thermodynamic assembly. But non-ordered assembly is a non-regular pattern. That's what you have in DNA. We know from computer science you have to have non-regular patterns in order to have complexity for living systems. And I asked my colleagues, do you have any example of molecules without a biological entity acting upon them, moving to give an ordered assembly that is a non-regular pattern? And they sent me papers where chemists have taken molecules and assembled them in that way. I said, non-biological entity. You can't have a human doing this. Molecules don't move toward life. Well, even if you want to have molecules move toward life and you have human beings working upon them, can the human beings do it? And the answer is no. So almost every chemical synthesis experiment in origin of life research can be summed up by a protocol analogous to this. They purchase chemicals generally in high purity from a chemical company. All right, so that's what they do. They first purchase the chemicals. They mix those chemicals together in water in high concentrations in a specific order under some set of carefully devised conditions in a modern lab. Then they can obtain a mixture of compounds that have a resemblance to one or more of the basic 4 classes of chemicals needed for life. So what you need for life is you need carbohydrates, nucleic acids, amino acids, and lipids. That's what we know. All life we know composes those 4 building blocks. So they try to make those 4 building blocks. Then they publish a paper making bold assertions about origin of life from these functionless crude mixtures of stereochemically scrambled intermediates, much like Miller did in 1952. Nothing has changed in 66 years. Nothing. Nothing's changed. Exactly where we were in 1952 is exactly where we have remained. Think about what's been done in science in the past 60 years. Nothing has changed in origin of life studies in 66 years. That's important to realize. Then you engage with the ever gullible press to dial up the knob of unjustified extrapolations. Watch the mesmerized layperson exclaim, "You see, scientists understand how life formed." Then you encourage a generation of science textbook writers to make colorful, deceptive cartoons of raw chemicals assembling from cells which then emerge as slithering creatures from a prehistoric pond. That is exactly what is done every one of their experiments.
So what do I say when someone asks me, do you believe there is life elsewhere in the universe? Carl Sagan once famously wrote that faith is belief in the absence of evidence. And honestly, any scientist who says there has to be life out there is putting forward a position of faith, not one supported by observational evidence and statistical reasoning.
So where are we putting our faith, ultimately? When it comes to belief, here are our choices. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and he made us in his own image. Or, in the beginning, nothing farted out the heavens and the earth that we got here from goo to you by way of the zoo. Or, nothing farted out the heavens and the earth, and E.T. seeded the goo to make you. Basically, these are our choices, guys. When you proceed from a false premise, your conclusions are going to be sheer madness. This is why we have so many crisis scenarios going on in so-called modern science. And it brings me to my last slide here. Which one is it then? We have all our government-funded textbooks telling us we live on an oblate spheroid. We have this guy saying, no, it's a pear shape. You have NASA and other government organizations like NASA showing us perfectly spherical worlds, and then you have the Bible saying, nope, you live in a snow globe. So which one is it? I say, look, as for me and my house, let God be true and every man a liar. You can laugh at me, you can mock me for saying that, but if you believe you're an evolved ape that got here from goo to you by way of the zoo out of a rock that was spit out of an exploding dot, you don't have the intellectual high ground in this discussion. Sorry to break it to you. And when it comes to evidence, my whole life experience points to the truth of the scriptures. I've had no reason to doubt it. And then when you start seeing other evidences like this, it just confirms all the more that I'm going to trust it for cosmology as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sheila Skiba, co-founder of Kingsgate Media, with my husband, Rob Skiba. My purpose in recording this brief video is to bring you up to date on what has been going on behind the scenes to keep Rob's vision and legacy alive. As many of you know, my husband Rob spent endless hours creating conference presentations, best-selling books, and hundreds of hours of videos, all with the goal of helping people understand where we came from and where humanity is heading. I would also like to fight for freedom of speech and to continue sharing the results of Rob's lifelong research. Toward that end, we will be making Rob's materials even more accessible by placing his insightful content on multiple platforms that extend beyond YouTube and Facebook. In addition, here at Kingsgate Media, we will continue our work on the 72-episode science fiction internet TV series called Seed, which exposes that truth is truly stranger than fiction. It also reveals that the keys to the future lie buried in the past. I'm also excited to let you know, in addition, our son Jeremiah will be creating a new Skiba News Nation channel on YouTube where he will provide an in-depth critique and commentary on his father's timeless and important research. He will discuss some of the disinformation we are being bombarded with today. He will touch on sensitive and controversial topics in an unfiltered manner, and we will also interview guests on critical news topics that need better coverage.
Hey, Jeremiah Skiba here. I've got some exciting news to share. I'm proud to announce the launch of the Skiba News Nation. Skiba News Nation will be an unfiltered show where I'll be reacting to the news going on in the world. My mom and I will also be interviewing people to talk about current events, health, history, reviewing Rob's content in detail, and much more. We will be taking a whole new approach to the ministry that my dad started. My mom and I will be using the Skiba News Nation to carry the torch for my dad in a whole new way. We want you to be a part of it as much as we are. We want you to submit stories, news, questions for us to talk about on Skiba News Nation. We will keep you updated on the platform's official launch. You can find us by subscribing and following our social media, YouTube, etc. in the description below. Thank you for your support and for staying on the quest for truth with us. One more thing. Welcome to the family.
The only reason why we're making progress on these projects is because of your support. You truly are my family. I really want to thank you for helping me to continue to see Rob's legacy and vision come to life. You are the ones that have made this possible. Thank you.
Alright, so it's been an awesome day, and I have the honor to introduce my dear friends and the ones that are carrying on Brother Rob's legacy, Sheila and Jeremiah Skiba.
Thank you so much for being here, first of all. And this is way outside my comfort zone, but so bear with me. But first, I wanted to start with a lighthearted thing as we get into more serious things. So I'm gonna play this video.
Look, tell her destiny brought you together. Tell her that she is the most beautiful girl you've ever seen in the world. Girls like that stuff. What are you doing, George? I'm writing this down. This is good stuff. Yeah, okay. Oh, let's go. Oh, take care of that. Lou, give me a milk. Chocolate. Sherry, go. Lorraine, my density has brought me to you.
What?
Oh, what I meant to say was...
Wait a minute. Don't I know you from somewhere?
Yes, yes, I'm George McFly. I'm your density. I mean, your destiny.
So I played that video because Rob was the most joyful, happy person that you will ever know. And so often when we were out in the field doing ministry and going to conferences, And we went to South Africa, which was a kiss from the Father, because we had been through a rough time. And he was the only speaker, and we went to several, I think he did 6 or 7. He did one in Cape Town and one in Pretoria, or however you say it, anyway. And so it was a blessing, and we went to Amsterdam and Canada and all over. Austin, we did one a year, and Lubbock, we did one a year. Anywhere people would have us, we went. And he would just say, as long as you pay for myself and my wife, we'll come. We don't charge and all that. And so it was a journey of fun and excitement. And so he often said, "You are my density." Just like that guy. And so with this, I use it because this morning, the Father told me before the conference, don't prepare, just go. So that's what I did. And when I woke up this morning, I'm like, okay, Father, I need something. And this popped in my head. So I asked my son, do you know where that clip is? Not thinking he could find it because, it's kind of last minute. He said, yeah. And in two minutes, he had it downloaded. So anyway, thank you, Jeremiah. So I want to just give you a little bit because I feel like family. I met so many of you, and your stories really meant a lot. And I'm so thankful that they're putting it in writing because I want to remember all these stories. And we kept a lot of emails and things in the past before Rob died, just to remember all the fruit and all the beautiful souls that connected to us through his research. So sometimes I had to pinch myself because it was so amazing. And then Rob would say, "You are my destiny." Destiny. So that's why I shared that. Sometimes I don't connect the dots. Rob often said he often said I forgot to put my blinker on. So if I do that, I apologize in advance. Okay. But I believe our destiny tonight is for me to give you this message. Rob was amazing. He had his Bible highlighted and annotated when he was 13 years old. And he was amazing. And because I had prayed for a husband that would love the Father more than I loved the Father, because I knew I'd get somebody that would love me. And so, wow, I got it in abundance. I got it in, I never imagined it was going to be that full of a gift, but that's what he was. He knew the Bible, and walking encyclopedia is what he was. He remembered dates, he remembered history, and so that was a real blessing. And so when we first met, what he did was he took the last part of his Bible and he cut it out, and he made a little Bible, and he said, "I'm going to study the kingdom and miracles. And I'm just going to highlight one orange and one green." And the reason is because we both, in our own walks, we met at a mission organization, and we would take our lunches together. But he was like, there's got to be more than this in this Christian experience and what we've been taught. And so that's why he did it. He took the last part of his Bible out, and he stapled it together, and then he just went through it, and he did orange for kingdom and green for the power or a healing or a, whatever miracle. And so we learned pretty fast that they went together. So, that's a big part of my message tonight that I want to share. There's kind of two messages, but we are supposed to be bringing the kingdom, and we are supposed to be ambassadors of the kingdom, and we're supposed to walk in that. And so together, we kind of went down that journey. And so he wanted to make it special whenever we got married. So he's a real numbers guy. And so we married on 777. That's 707. 7 bridesmaids, 7 groomsmen. So, he's really big into numbers. And looking through the old pictures, I found this. It's a yellow rose, and it has a little note on the bottom. He just snuck it in the room after I had said yes. And it says, "Our future is bright." So that's what he said, just a sweet little note. And we'll tie it into something else later. And then we with this kingdom message, I'm trying to connect the dots, because just bear with me with this, because it's all connected, but I'm non-linear. Rob was very linear, and I'm not. But we wanted to experience the kingdom. And so we had 300 people in one room that we loved. Some of them were sick, some of them had problems, but we believed in the power. It's not just a lot of talk, it's walking in Yahuwah's power. And so we decided during our wedding we were going to invite the guests to come up and get prayer, and we prayed for many of them. We had prayer teams as well. But Rob's own mother got healed. She got healed. She had been given a death sentence of 10 years, and she's alive today. She was planting a garden and things right after our wedding. So that fruit was really amazing to us to give us. We also had a little thing on each table of a little jar of mustard seeds, and it says, I tell you the truth, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. And then I put in bold, nothing will be impossible for you. And Rob believed that. And he really, to back up a little more, because we worked together, he heard me pray once at one of our chapels, and he often said that's why he decided that to be interested is because that girl knows how to pray. And so I thought that was kind of sweet. And so we incorporated that into our wedding. And then we had our first, and this is before we came out of Babylon, we had our first Christmas, and I decided to give him a new Bible, and I wrote this in there, and I almost was going to bring these little Bibles I'm talking about, but I had too much stuff already, so I didn't bring it. But this was a note that I put in the first gift that I gave him, and I want to read it to you. This is our heart. I'm trying to show you what our heart was back then, because this is like 2007. Dear Rob, you will do mighty exploits in these last days. It is my honor to give you this new sword. Go raise the dead, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, multiply food, and transport. And I have a little smiley face. See God's power released in your life today and forever. You are an overcomer. You are the body of Jesus in the earth, releasing heaven. The kingdom is at hand. I love you so much. And so that's kind of where our marriage started. We went to Amsterdam, and this is him teaching. And I have pictures of him in every city that he ever. I mean, so many places, so many people. And it was a journey. It was an adventure. I loved it. He was a gift to me too for 14 years. I mean, high above anything I could have ever expected. So I praise the Father for that. And then time went on, and we were feeling irritated in church. Like, we're not learning. It's entertainment. All this singing, it's loud, and and we both looked at each other and said, let's just stay home. We said, okay. So we called it church on the pillow. We would just lay in the bed and have church with the radio on, and that was our church for a while. And then he was connected with a man and his wife who were studying the Torah, and Rob's heart was heavy, and so he asked him, well, why don't you come with us? Me and my wife are doing a Torah study at the Christian Bible store. It was like a mall, whatever. And he said, a Torah study at a Christian bookstore? That's what it was. And he said, yeah. And so he looked at me, and I'm like, yeah, sure. So we went, and it was amazing. It was a portion about Joseph and his brothers, and it was so much fun, and about Tamar, the sister, because when we got home, somebody in the group said that she was part Nephilim, and he was like, no, she couldn't be. And so we went back and Joshua and looked and saw her name meant upright, so she had to be had to be Hebrew. That was part of the journey, finding the Torah, or as he called it, the whole Bible movement. And that was really fun and really, really a sweet season in our marriage. And like I said, it was a 14-year gift, and I am so happy and so blessed that I had that. And then I'm going to go into when Rob got sick. In August of 2021, he went to take on the world, and I always traveled with him, but he told me this time that he didn't want me to go, and because of in quarantining and all that, and he was like, I want you safe. He was worried about my health, so I said, okay. Tried to get him to just do Zoom, and he said, no, I have to be there, and I said, okay. So he went, and when he came back, he was fine. But he started coughing, and it kind of kept going on, and days went by, and we had all the ivermectin and all the stuff that they, we had all the frontline doctor stuff. And we were trying, and they do it through telemed, so we had called in the prescription, and so when it kept lingering on and on, I would tell Rob, we need to go somewhere or something, because you're not getting any better. You're not able to eat, and you're not able to drink, and you're not able to swallow pills. And I'm like, but he was very stubborn, and he was like, no, they're not going to shove a Q-tip up my nose, so he stayed. So I called him, and they said, take him to the ER. So I felt like, since they were frontline aligned, I thought, okay, because I had been to the hospital many times. My dad got a pacemaker there. They had excellent emergency care in the years past, and so I didn't think anything of it, and I took him, and it was a nightmare, really. And I'm not going to go into the details because I've spent the last year and a half of my life working on this book, The Protocol That Kills, I guess what was up there, and I'm just going to give you a few nuggets of what I've gotten from this. And I apologize. I'm so nervous. trying to make it flow, but no, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And at that conference, he never got to give his very last presentation that he prepared. And he always had good slides, he had videos to go with it, and he always showed me before, and then we kind of tweaked it or maybe take that out. And so it was so good. I thought it was so amazing that as soon as he got in the car, I said, how did the last one go? And he goes, I didn't give it. And I said, why not? He goes, it was hijacked or something like that. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, well, there was something going on. I really didn't know until I came tonight that there was some lady manifesting something, and Rob just said, look, do y'all want me to speak? But I think maybe y'all need to minister to the lady. So that's what they did, and he never gave his speech.
Wow. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be doing this. The Holy Spirit hijacked the service tonight. And can't ask for anything better than that. Before coming here, those of you who attended Friday night, I told you that I felt like the Spirit was telling me my people need healing. And that's what this Take on the World is all about. You've heard many speakers throughout this weekend talk about physical healing, emotional healing, all of it, all the above. We saw a whole lot of spiritual healing up here. And guys, this presentation that I prepared here, I just think is cool. I really don't know if I should do it. I know some people are expecting. Let me ask you, should I do it or not? Because there may be more of that is needed than this. I guess is what I'm saying. And I don't want to interrupt that. If the Spirit is still moving and people still need deliverance, then that's way more important than talking about aliens and Revelation and whatever I'm going to talk about. I'm conflicted, I really am. I truly am, because that was amazing. That was fantastic. And if that needs to continue, then we need to continue that. So, you guys tell me. Anybody else that needs healing, please come up here. Any prayer partners, please come up here.
But it was called Revelation 12 and the Nuremberg Connection. So I find that very interesting. I don't know if he got sick there or, but I don't live in shoulda, woulda, coulda, and I try not to let my mind go there, because destiny, like that thing that I played, the very first thing, that's kind of the season of or the reason for all of this, and that's kind of, I guess, why the Father gave me that word today. So it was 40 days. He lived 40 days in the hospital, and it was during the fall feast, which, I never in a million years thought I was going to lose him, ever. And so, and it kept falling on special days, and people say, now's the time, because, and all the details are in the book. I didn't hold anything back. So early on, like this day 2 of him being there, because I could talk to him, but I couldn't see him. They locked me out for 21 days. So, and we were talking and we were texting, and all those are in the book. I mean, everything is in the book. I didn't think I kind of had a hesitation leaving him there, but I felt like he was strong enough to hold his own, and he needed oxygen, and that's what I forgot to tell you. His oxygen level got down to 70, and they told me take him to the ER, the frontline American telemed people. So that's why I did it. And I felt a little uneasy, because the only thing they wanted me to answer for his medical history was he needed? And I said, no. I'm like, since when does that matter? I mean, really? So they wheeled him off, literally escorted me out, and I'm not going to go into the details of that, but it was excruciating. And I thought they were going to settle him in and then let me in, but no, they had a plan, and they had a plan to keep me out for 21 days. But I still kept holding on to faith, and I still kept believing that he was going to make a way. And I gathered a team of people together, doctors, nurses. He was strong enough to get me into my chart, which is interesting, because one of the nurses said, you don't get that until after discharge. And I said, no, because I take care of senior citizens. You get it real time. We need it. And he was actually able to call me and help me do that. And so I had a team of people looking at his charts like every day. But anyway, back to the day 2, when he was in there, I got hit. My phone was ringing. It was Rob. And my mom and sister were with me. I said, oh, it's Rob, it's Rob. So we answered it. And it wasn't Rob, it was a doctor, and he was literally yelling at me that my husband needed to be put on a ventilator. And I said, no, he doesn't need a ventilator. His oxygen went from 70 to 96 actually. And they said, and then he just kept on. He said, if your husband doesn't get put on a ventilator, he's going to die. Do you want your husband to die? And he was talking to me like that in front of my mom, my sister, and Rob. I mean, since when do you talk like that in front of the patient? It's just so weird. And I will say that it's not a one-off story, because I've met so many, probably hundreds of people that had the same exact story, same exact script. So I have a piece of paper back there that's free. It's called Script of Death. And I'm telling you right now, every single story is the same. So I want to know who wrote the script and how did they deliver it to the hospitals. That's the one thing I want. I think they should be held accountable. They should show us how many people in that hospital that was not died of whatever. And so that's one thing that I'm praying for, because I believe we have the right to know. There's so much detail in the book. It's not a sob story. It is it's a case study is what it is. And it's, when the doctor yelled at me that hateful and that mean, I decided, you know what, I'm going to record every phone call from this moment on so that I can share it with Rob and show him how crazy it was. Because he had been, Rob had been standing on the mountain yelling at people saying, the churches are shutting down, wake up. He was not a whistleblower. He was screaming at the top of his lungs to people. It even got him locked out of Facebook for 2 months before his trip. And yeah, so that happened. Okay, I just wanted to let you know why I decided to record the calls, because I never thought Rob was going to die. He was healthy. He was the healthiest person I knew. In fact, when he was 50, he had a goal to be in the same shape that he was at 25. And so you can see it on Facebook. He showed a picture of him at 25 and then 50. And I mean, he got a trainer. He was working out twice a week. I mean, he was in the best shape of his life. So I kept believing. And even the day he died, I didn't think it was time. I thought he could pull through, and we even had another hospital that was going to take him. And anyway, as you read the book, you will see my journey. It's a day-by-day journal. But after, and I need to thank publicly a couple out there. They're like family. Roberta and Alan. If you're watching, I wouldn't even be here today. I don't know what I would do without them. They helped me. Literally held my hand through this whole nightmare. She was actually with me at the very end, and I just thank them so much, because this is not just a book. It is a case study, and it is. So what I had to do is I had to transcribe thousands of hours of phone calls, because I taped everything, the chaplain, the social worker. I mean, it was like a mind game what they were doing to me. I was expecting Rob to write the book. I wasn't going to write a book. I thought he'd live through it, and I'd give him this and say, look what I had to go through, and then, then he could write it. But then, he dies. And I will tell you that I prayed, and you can ask my son. I mean, everybody were like, no way is the father going to allow Rob to die like this. No way. I mean, he was the one warning people, But we didn't know that our hospital, our local hospital down the street, had turned into a kill shelter. We didn't know that. And so, anyway, he dies. And it's really disappointing. And even though I will say, and part of the message of the kingdom is doing the things that Yeshua did. And you know what Yeshua said? He said, just like Rob's Bible with the green and the orange, it always went together. So when he died, I literally said, I forgive you, but get out. And they got out. They were like all in the room, so they got out. I closed the curtain, and me and Roberta, and eventually my mom and sister came, and we were praying for God to raise him, because, that's what we're supposed to do. I don't know what church teaches that, but I went to a little small church in Fort Worth, Texas, and they taught us how to pray like that. And so I said, well, we're going to have to do it. Let's get him up. So we prayed over him, and I kept thinking, I had prayed, whatever will bring you more glory, I'm okay with it. So I was thinking, well, that'd be pretty cool, to see him get up. And an amazing testimony to that. And then also he could tell us, what they did to him, because in the records, and it's all detailed, there's nothing left out. They tied him down, they made him do a BiPAP, they starved him, and this is all part of that script that I'm talking about. And so before you leave, there's a whole stack of them back there. I'm just praying that it can get into the right hands. So one other little inside story is, before we started praying for him to be raised, a friend of mine, who I thought was a really close friend, she cornered me in my laundry room and she said, why would God raise Rob? And I was like, I felt like I had been slapped in the face, first of all. I said, well, first of all, you need to leave because your lack of faith could hinder our faith. So I had her leave. And I felt like, it just stunned me, and I was like, who better, We're supposed to do these things. I mean, read it. It's over and over again. So I'm going to challenge you guys, and that's one of the other things is Rob took truth wherever it took him. It caused him a lot of turmoil, a lot of pain, a lot of tears, a lot of feeling rejected and spit on, and I mean, he went through a lot. But he kept on because he said, "It says what it says." That's what the Father told him. It says what it. The Father literally told him when he was battling with whether or not to say it or not. He said, "Look, I said what I said. You can believe it or not." And I told him, well, if it says it in Scripture, we believe it. And so then he started he started being public that what he believed in. And we lost so many friendships of people in the church, and it was really sad that they would, turn their back on you for something that's literally in Scripture. And so I was going to open it up with, I'm going to take you to one more level of taking the Bible literally, because that's what this message is kind of about. And it's a little bit out there, but I felt like this is what I was supposed to share. So we got his body in our house, and we prayed over him for 3 days. And my mom and Roberta, they were standing there with me. We had a couple of guys, and we had a handful of people, and we were praying and believing, but then I had to let him go because he had to be buried. And it was hard to say, that's the next level. And so the next day, actually that night when they took him, I had my friend Roberta had a really close friend that said, I want to pray for Sheila. And I said, okay. So we went upstairs, me and my mom and sister, and we were all huddled together. And there was a lady on the other end, and she gave a prayer over me. And she said, I see immense love, and I see words like, you can do it. And I thought, do what, live? Because I was devastated. And then she said, your sword is your pen. And she said, I see light beams, light beams, light beams. And I didn't know what that meant. But then looking at the flower that he sent me on the day he asked me to marry him, it said, our future is bright. So that kind of tied, that's what I saw the connection there earlier today. But so this prayer was prayed over me, and it rings in my ear, and I'm thinking, okay, and then we go to the cemetery, and we have to bury him. And I took a few pictures of somebody blowing the shofar over it, and we were believing. We were believing. And I took pictures and videos, a handful. And then I'm trying not to get off track here, but my mom wanted to get there before we did. So she got there about 2 hours before we did, and then we got there, and then we just did our prayer. We stayed for several hours, just believing. And then we had to go. So we left. And then a couple weeks pass, and I'm looking at my mom's phone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, did you see what was in that picture? She said, no. I said, oh my gosh, Mom, there's a light beam in your picture. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. Let me look at mine. Let me look at the pictures I took. Maybe I have some. So I took, all my pictures had light beams, every single one of them. And even the video has a light beam. Now, Rob was real, skeptical about people that take pictures and it's dust, and he would say, that's not an orb, that's, whatever. So I'm hoping that's not what it is. But anyway, I'm going to take it as prophetic, and this is a light beam. And maybe he's putting his little toe down, say bye or hi or whatever. Because, our bodies are light beings. We lost that, during the fall. And then here's one of them. And it's also in the video, and I don't know how photography works, but for it to be in the pictures and the video and my mom's, it gave me a little bit of comfort, But I didn't quite know what was to come next. So, and like I said, Alan and Roberta, they really, really helped me through this because, Rob did everything. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to insurance and planning a funeral. All this stuff is so much. He did everything. The cars and everything. And so they really helped me. And I asked Roberta, I said, I'd like to go through the medical record because I got the whole entire big 5,000 page record, And I said, I want to, because I want to see, I want to understand what they did to him. And so she said, okay, I'll help you. So we went through it, and I'm talking to like all-nighters. I mean, we spent hours and hours, like thousands of hours, just on the summary. This isn't even my book. This is a summary before my book. And our thought was, if we could get the understanding, maybe we could find an attorney to take it, because it was definitely murder. It was definitely premeditated murder, because they got paid so much money. And that's all in the book, too. My book has laws that they broke. It has charts, and it has how much oxygen they were giving him, which was way more than he needed. The damage they did to him from a BiPAP that was contraindicated because he had a pneumomediastinum. And we also hired a medical expert witness who gave 9 causes of action that killed him. Now, Rob is a face of millions, I really believe. And I think it's 1.2 million Americans died the same way. And so he's the face of many. And so I made the names of the doctors and social workers. I gave them pseudonyms that, and I will admit they're not very nice, but I have Dr. Killer and Nurse Malicious, and they're all like that. So, because I want people to be able to relate to it, because they had a Dr. Dead End, they had a Nurse Malicious. I mean, really, this was barbaric. I mean, I even yelled once, what country is this? And I kept saying, show me in writing where it says I can't see my husband. And so anyway, so Roberta helps me write this summary, and then we call a few attorneys, and they're like, no. I mean, it's like the plague, you know, they won't look at it because they know they have immunity. The doctors are protected, and they're not going to make any money on it, because I think it's capped at $250 for malpractice. So I said, you know what? Forget that. I'm going to do what Rob did. I'm gonna write a book. So I asked Roberta, will you help me write the book? She said, I'm going to pray about it, and so she did. And at one point she said no, she couldn't. But one day, and her husband was with her at my house, they lived like right down the street, she said, I think I have it. We can write it like you are the jury, because public opinion matters. And that's what Rob did. Rob wrote books. He would do blogs, and then he would collect all the information and write a book. So I took his lead on it. And so this book has taken 1.5 years of my life. And so what I had to do first was, and I mean, it was excruciating to do this, but I had to listen to all those phone calls, and I had to transcribe them. And so I would transcribe them, and then I'd give them to Roberta, and then she'd write it into a dialogue. And then from there, they would go to her husband, Alan, and then he would clean it up. And we kind of, I mean, I'm telling you, it was like 11, 12-hour days. It was a lot of work. And I thank them so much. I could never have written this by myself. And he's very analytical and, you know, with numbers and you know, just making sure it all lines up. This is fact only. This is not feelings. This is dialogue from the mouths of the doctors themselves. It's not anything made up. And hopefully, if somebody is bold enough to take this case, we already have the case already done. All they need are the audio files themselves. I think that you know, it's already done. So we start writing the book. It takes a long time. The lady that told me, why would God raise Rob, you know, that story, well, I remembered a scripture that said, when I come back, will there be faith in the earth? I remembered that scripture because, you know, and I couldn't remember where it was. So after his death and after all this, I went into the Bible, and I was like, where is that? And so I was looking, found it in Luke 18. So the name of the title of that chapter is, guess what? Persistent Widow. It's a story about a persistent widow. Now, I didn't even consider myself a widow at this time because it was so fresh. But I think it was the Father showing me that he has something better. He had something great. He had something way bigger than I had ever imagined. So I held on to that. And I encourage all of you to read that story, because this widow was on and on and on this judge. It even says the judge was ungodly and not just, but because of this nagging widow, he did whatever it was that she needed to be done. And so I am the persistent widow, just so you know. And I'm going to keep on, whatever that may look like, until I get answers, until... Thank you. And so the prayer that with the light beams, you know, the I can do it, I think that was the book, to finish the book. And I felt a big weight off my shoulders when I did the book. And does anybody in here know about Rob's prayer initiative at 444? So he did that before he went on his trip. I mean, because when this whole COVID thing happened, he was like, we got to do something, man. You know, we need to come together as a people and pray, because we can turn this around if we just humble ourselves, seek him and pray. So he was calling all people to pray at 4:44 in the morning or 4:44 at night. And I'm telling you that because, and you know, if you've ever edited a book, you have to go through many cycles of edits and edits and edits and edits. And so when we thought that we were completely finished, Alan converted it from Word into a PDF, because that's what you have to upload. It's on Amazon. So he texted me, he took a screen capture. Guess how many pages that book was? 444. I couldn't make that happen if I tried. I think it was kind of for him more than it was for me. Now, I will say the book itself, because that Word document had extra blank pages, it automatically does it. I don't know. But either way, I mean, wow. That's a kiss from the Father, too. And showing me confirmation. Because if you knew Rob or you ever heard him speak, he prayed for that. He prayed, Father, show me a tangible you. Show me something that's you that I can't deny. And then the Father would do it, and then he'd ask for another one, and then he'd do it, and then he'd ask for another one. I mean, he was a typical man, you know, so. But we're helpers. We're helpers. He called me the Queen of Favor, because anytime I prayed, it seemed like I would get my answered prayer. And so, you know, we completed, I guess we completed each other or whatever. So I got that persistent widow verse, and I started just believing. And I had several women believing, even though he was buried, you know. But it says in the end days, or actually, I'm sorry, it says when Yeshua rose from the dead, that the graves are opened. I don't know what that looks like. There's not really, there are no details. I called Zen and I'm like, are there any stories that talk about somebody being raised after they're buried? And he actually said yes, and I'm yet to find it, but that was encouraging to me. And so I say this because tomorrow's Pentecost, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying I'm having faith that it could happen. Because if he didn't want to come back, I would be fine with that. But if the Father told him that I have a job for you, he would be here in a second, because he loved all of you. And the people, he had a prayer that was so precious. He wanted to lead the last person before the end to Yeshua. That was his prayer. And I don't know anybody that prays like that, but he had a really evangelistic heart, and he really gave people a chance to torture him, not really, but he gave people a chance to work through their level of understanding, because we all are in different seasons, and you have to give them a time to catch up to where you are. And so, and he would do it for hours. I mean, he was on the computer from like all day, 12 hours, and I'm like, you need to get up, you know, and quit feeding the brain of the AI, you know. And even though it does need some good stuff too, but he took the time to answer the questions, and because he did it so much, and he did it over and over, and every question that could be asked was asked, and he answered it, because the Bible, or I like to call them the scriptures, was his compass for truth. And because he kept on explaining it, he got better at it, and then he knew it like this. Like everything he did, he memorized pretty much. I wish I had that gift. I don't, and I'm also nonlinear, so I miss him, because every now and then I'm like, oh man, Rob would know that. Oh man, Rob would know that. But we're getting through it. We're getting through it, and I just want to say I'm hoping that you could help me get the book out to the masses. I truly believe that it's not just a book; it's a case study. It is the evidence of what they did to 1.2 million people. Is what I'm believing. I mean, what I heard with the numbers, and so there's several things that you can do. I want to also thank my son. He's an introvert, so for him to come to me and say, "Mom, I want to keep Rob's legacy alive," I said, "Okay." And so Jake and Sierra came through town. They were actually there through the whole praying over his body and stuff. And it's amazing to have people that did believe, because a lot of people were calling saying, "Don't give her false hope," and all that. It was my idea. I'm like, give it a chance, you know. Don't protect me. Just get out of here, you know. And so that was a really beautiful time too. But let's see, where was I? So I believe Rob was especially targeted because he was unvaccinated. And anybody I ask, I have not yet found one person who was vaccinated. So I think that number needs to be given to us as well. Even the consent forms were not signed. And my son had a big problem with that. So we got the record again in December, and 2022. And they gave us another record. They kind of messed with us a little bit because we got home and the CD was blank. So we went back and we got another record. It had a few extra pages and we looked through it. And then with a lot of back and forth, we got 3 documents that were kind of like admissions, whatever the HIPAA thing is, and then something else. And it had a little squiggly on it, like a signature. And I was like, and that's not my signature. And I know it's not Rob's signature. I don't know what this is. And my son said, well, it says there's a witness right here. And he pointed to her name. And I said, oh, I've got a great idea. We got to, let's go up there just nonchalantly and ask if she works, if she's working today. And so we did. And we went up there and we found her. And so we sat down with her and we told her, that my husband was in the hospital. I just wanted to know, what this paper was. Like, what's this word? Because it's not my signature and it's not my husband's. And that's in the book. It's like at the very end, the last 6 pages. All of this is in the book. And I think that's fraud, I think. I'm not 100%, I'm not an attorney, but I think that's fraud. And they did it really weird. Like they circled the word spouse, but they put the word verbal. And then there's another place that says, if you are not the person, the patient, sign your name and an address, and that was blank. So it was kind of like a hodgepodge of answers, and it really bothered me. And so we went up there to confront it, and they said, well, we probably called him because he was in isolation to see, and then we would have put verbal, and that it's our procedure to record it. And I said, well, I need that. I need to hear my husband's voice saying yes, because he wasn't going to do it. He told me, trying everything they can to get me to get on a ventilator. I'm dead if I do. So he wasn't ever going to do it. In fact, he had a wristband that said DNI, do not intubate. And I want to know someday who took that off of his wrist, because I talked to him that morning. And so I can't live in the past, though. I can't, because if he had told me to come get him, I would have busted the door down. I would literally bust the door down. I was breaking stuff at my house because I was so mad I couldn't get in there. But this is for a purpose. There's destiny. Remember that? Or density. So I want to let you know the reason why this book is special. Okay, it's a true crime docudrama. It's a legal brief. It's as a body of evidence. And like I said, we hired a medical expert that put their analysis in there that has that 9 causes of action. And it's also a complete day-by-day chronological story of our 40-day nightmare. Now, I say nightmare, it was a total nightmare, but the 40 days, I receive that as something from the Father, because 40 days, really? And when you see how many drugs they were giving him, it's a miracle he lived through 40 days. And I couldn't get in there for 21 days, and I'm sad because I don't know what they did to him. When I would call, because I had all the calls recorded, you can hear how rude they are and do you even know what that means? And I'm like, yes, I do know what it means, and I think I can get my husband's vitals twice a day. Just real hateful. And they did this to everybody. And Rob said, there are more of us than there are of them. And that's why the book is important, because I need you. I need all of you. And we need to get this message out to the masses. And I don't think there's a book like this. This is a case study on a loved person that's a face of thousands with detail that nobody has seen. And some people may think their loved one died of whatever, COVID, and this book will show you, no, they didn't. They died of paralytics and sedatives and drugs that are going to shut your kidneys down and all this kind of stuff. So there was so much done wrong to him, and it's so detailed in the book. I've been doing interviews, and so my website is The Protocol That Kills, and this is way outside of my comfort zone too, but they get easier. Like Rob always told me, you're only good at what you practice. So we've done 6, and they're all on my website. And I'm trying to see how to slide up. Well, this is just the video. But anyway, if you go to the menu, you'll see interviews. So if you're interested in more of those, or you want to know a little bit more about the book, then just go there and look at the interviews. And each one is different, and it's different people. Because, see, Rob knew all these leaders. He knew all these other teachers. And so that's one thing I was going to ask you. My son and I can only do so much. You know, we are not social media experts. I mean, my son has taught me a great deal, but we need help. We need help getting the word out. So that's what I'm asking you. I'm asking you to please, get the book, share it with your family and friends, and also give it to doctors, attorneys, anybody that will listen, or somebody you're trying to convince that there's a genocide happening in hospitals. Also, my son created a channel to honor Rob on Fridays at 444 every Friday, and we're in the chat, so it's like a little community. I welcome all of you there. And as this develops, because I don't know what the end is going to look like, but I know it's not over yet. And yeah, thank you. And the enemy, I know his time is short. That's why he's ramping everything up. But we're going to be creating a movement of freedom, a movement of truth. And I really believe that's what this book is, because Rob was on a quest for truth. So this was a tragic thing that happened, but Rob took truth wherever it took him, and he was unashamed. So I feel like that's why I felt so obligated to write the book. It's because I know if the roles were reversed, he would do this. But his final quest for truth ended in his death, but it was 40 days, and then he went to the promised land. So that's kind of poetic in its own way. But I'm going to read you a few other things that you can do. If you're listening to the show online, or if you get online and watch different things on YouTube, or not, well, they ban most things, but anywhere you do and you see a group of people, post a link. And also, if you have the time, even if you don't want to leave a review, if you just put a 5-star, it'll push it to more people. It actually, within the first 48 hours, was the bestseller for medical ethics category. I was blown away, above even the Dr. Fauci book. So it's gotten quite a bit of, yeah, thank you. And one other little quick detail, too, is in April, I think we released it on the 12th of April or something, but they show you how many you sell each month. Guess how many we sold in April? 444. And there's another part of that story that you can't make it up. I mean, it's so Rob. I mean, he lived for those encounters, and because of his example, I live for those examples, and anybody who wants to be tapped into his frequency, he wants to speak to you that way too. It's amazing. It's an amazing walk. Let's see how much time I have. This is making me nervous, that clock. I'm running out of time. I wanted to read one more verse. So Luke 18:8, it says, justice comes quickly. So I don't know how that looks, but if you have any way to help us get the word out into the right hands, I thank you. Or if you want to give a review, just go to the website. It's all on the website, theprotocalthatkills.com. The persistent widow. I will be the persistent widow. It says justice comes quickly. But our Father is just and loving. So we have a better judge. We have a better judge than this persistent widow. So I went to a little church in Fort Worth, like I said, when Jeremiah was little, and I just ran to, I wanted to learn more about the Bible. I didn't understand it, but it was a little church called Romans 8. So I just want to read this because I feel like this is where we are today, and it's, for the creation eagerly waits with anticipation for God's sons to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in the hope that the creation itself will also be set free from the bondage of corruption into the glorious freedom of God's children. And I butchered that because I missed the most important part. Let me do it again. Okay, so for the creation, it's eagerly waiting, because they're really messing up the ecosystem that the Father created for life. They're really messing that up. They've been doing it for years. And so it's also crying out. And so it says, for the creation eagerly waits with anticipation for Yahuwah's sons to be revealed. That's us. And I don't know very many churches that are teaching this. I mean, we need to know. I mean, he said, when I come back, will I find faith? Well, yes, I want to believe. I don't know what that means. Tomorrow's Pentecost. But I would be delighted if he came back, because I don't even know how to do the calendar. It's a whole mess. He could get us all on track and say what the firmament feels like. Not to mention his little talks I'm sure he's had with Abraham and Paul, and telling Paul, you could have wrote that a little better because it's really confusing. So I have a little bit of joy just thinking about those things, because I know he's not dead. He's more alive than we are. And he wanted to be in the game in the end. He said that many, many times to me. I want to be in the game when in the end. And he prayed that. So, I mean, I'm not saying it is or isn't. I'm just saying I'm a persistent widow, whatever that looks like, justice, or for him to come back, or for other people that, I don't know what these end days look like, but I know that we need something. We need a kickstart. We need to start believing. I mean, you don't know. I don't understand Christians that don't pray for sick people or raising the dead. I mean, it says it over and over and over. Then you see the kingdom is at hand, and you see him raise the dead, heal the sick, cast out demons. Why aren't we doing that? I don't know. But he wants to know, will he find faith? And Rob believed that too. And that's why I showed you the wedding stuff. It's because his heart, that's how our whole relationship started, was believing that there was more to this experience, this Christian experience, than what we had been given. It was so stale and so boring, and so we were pursuing the kingdom. We were pursuing the greater relationship that's promised. And now we're living, 14 years later, and I wanted you to get a taste of where we were then, and then the Torah, and then the truth. We get the Spirit, and then the truth. And that was a whole nother level and a blessing. But I want to believe for even a greater blessing. And I want to believe for the body of Yeshua to start believing. We need to be, it says to occupy until he comes. Well, occupy is not just to sit around and exist. No, occupy is a military term. It means to take over. So I want to encourage each one of you to don't be on the defensive. Be on the offense. They should be afraid of us, not the other way around. And so in saying that, because I'm running out of time, I wanted to say there's another thing that you can do to protect your family. And I learned this after we published the book, or I would have put it in the book. But there's a few people, it's kind of interesting. Their website is Protocol Kills, and my book is The Protocol That Kills. So when I was looking for the domain, I found their website, and I got to know them a little bit. They have found a way to help people stay alive if, God forbid, they go to the hospital for a broken arm or whatever. Because as soon as you go, you're not going to have, the same thing that I experienced. I'm sure it's not going to stop. But it's a document that you, so on my website, The Protocol That Kills, if you go to my resources, you will see those forms and those directions. And I encourage each one of you, you never know what could happen. Just have them in your glove box and with a loved one, for the children, for everybody, because we need to protect ourselves to stay alive. So that's one thing I wanted to share. And then let me go to my list real quick, and then I'll have a promo. If you have anybody that influences people, like radio show hosts or whatever, if you have connections like that, I'm asking you to please plant that seed, or let me know, and I'll send them a complimentary book. I've already sent it to quite a few, but it's hard to find. It's hard to do all of the steps, to get this message out. Even if you have like insights on social media tricks, or we're just living day by day, kind of faking it till you make it. But I really feel like, and somebody prayed over me for the team that the Father's created, because we need to be, like I said, on the offense, not the defense. And that those papers are part of that. So I really do encourage all of you to do that. And then also connect with us with Skiba News Nation on Fridays at 444. And then the website, theprotocolthatkills.com. There's tons of information. If you have a loved one that thinks it's a one-off, I encourage you to look at this website, because we put a page called Outcries. And I mean, I've met, at least 5 or 6 people in this room that said they had a loved one that died the same way. And I get that everywhere I go. And so I encourage you to look there. You can also leave an outcry, or you can communicate with me through there. There's Alan's so awesome. He made it easy where you could go to the interview page, and if you want to, set an interview up, you can go there and just, send a message here. Let me make sure I got everything else. So first, I got a few seconds. I want to say prayer is the most important thing, and that I'm taking Rob's lead on that because he thought if we all pray, we could hold it back a little bit. I don't know, it's ramping up. So I know either way I'm going to see him sooner than later. But I encourage you as things, it says, as you see the day approaching, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves. So stay connected to your family. That's one thing we didn't do. That's why what happened, part of the reason, and that was our fault, because he was a workaholic and he was in an island, and I didn't know who to call. So that's another reason why the father probably says that. So I think that's good. So I'll go ahead and play the promo.
Did you know that a government-incentivized hospital protocol has led to the deaths of untold numbers of unsuspecting people? The Association of American Physicians and Surgeons noted, "We now see government-dictated medical care at its worst in our history, since the federal government mandated these ineffective and dangerous treatments, and then created financial incentives for hospitals and doctors to use only those approved and paid for approaches." The book, The Protocol That Kills, exposes the lethal regimen adopted by hospitals to maximize profits at the expense of patients' lives. This exhaustive expose provides a first-hand account of the protocol in action as it was invoked on an otherwise strong and healthy 52-year-old Rob Skiba, who was diagnosed with a viral infection by the admitting hospital. Within 40 days, this valiant Army veteran who had sworn to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, had fallen at the hands of a government-incentivized domestic enemy. This over 400-page true crime story uncovers every aspect of this lethal protocol in action, despite the protests of Rob Skiba and his wife. It includes disheartening text messages from Rob, who was locked away from his wife because she was forbidden to enter the hospital in the name of the protocol. Lawfully recorded detailed conversations his wife had with doctors, therapists, nurses, and hospital staff. Numerous pages extracted from the over 5,000-page hospital record that exposed the protocol that led to his tragic death. The testimony of a medical expert who provided his detailed analysis of the case. Invaluable and timely insights of a legal counsel who provides the story behind the story by providing crucial details and evidence, along with over 100 citations from clinical studies, medical journals, federal regulations, and relevant books and articles that prove Rob did not die of natural causes, but due to the perpetrator's insistence that he follow the mandated and inhumane protocol that kills. As Richard Bartlett, MD, says, this book shares a wealth of critical insights that will greatly aid in preventing future needless losses of life. The purpose of this book is to sound an alarm of a clear and present danger, as this lethal protocol is still being used against patients in hospitals all across America, and to provide you with essential insights that can help save your life or the life of someone you love. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. Get a copy today at theprotocolthatkills.com.
I think this is on behalf of everyone. Thank you so much. You went through a lot.
Thank you.
And I think that you're definitely the person to take it on. So whatever we can do to help, we're grateful to do it. But thank you.
The persistent widow got justice quickly, and I want to join in agreement in prayer because enough is enough.
Amen.
Rob said that too. There are more of us than there are of them, and I don't know how that looks, but he does. So let's join together. I don't know how it's going to happen. You know, the Nuremberg trials were 75-year anniversary was last year, but nobody was talking about it. I had to find it online from a Holocaust survivor who republished it, kind of like Zen, and I was so thankful because I read through it, and they broke every single rule in there. And the reason why is because they have an agenda. It's a government incentivized protocol that is designed to kill, and it's killing a lot of people. And now we have other problems too, but they've been killing people in the medical system for years. This just gave them a blank check. pretty much.
You know, Sheila, 2.5 years ago, we prayed at the Georgia Guidestones, and they've
that.
fallen down. So everybody stand up.
I think it was Rob that kicked it down. That's what I think. I don't know.
Let's join hands in whatever way you want to do that. You can circle, or let's honor Sheila with that prayer. Pray with all your heart.
Yes, please.
Oh, Father God, Father Yah, we honor you. We give you thanks and praise for this time together to honor Rob, and thank you for taking him into your arms and comforting him in the most beautiful way. This world is fallen, and we're still here, and we still have to carry on, and so we want to be your warriors for truth and light and promises that you've given us. So help us, Father, to come together with united hearts to honor Rob and the Skiba family, his mother and father, and all of the faithful ones. Sheila, strengthen her in her work. And we just pray that we could hold back the evil and the madness that has overcome this country. It is Babylon here. It's Egypt. Keep us pure. Strengthen us in our love, because we will be known by our love, the love that you gave us. We can only love it because you first loved us. So, Father, just help us in this. We plead, we pray, and we ask with all our hearts.
Can you just keep the prayer going, everyone, please, as we just go throughout this weekend and throughout just our lives. Let's just keep this prayer going.
Yeah. I mean, some people set their alarm at 444, and then just if we can unite our prayers and our hearts, each one of you deserves justice for your grandmother, for your uncle, for your brother, for your sister. I mean, this enough is enough. We need to stand strong. If we don't stand strong together, we're going to end up dying alone. And I know that there's got to be a silver lining. And Rob had such a authentic personality. I think that he really connected. I mean, everybody that's talked to me tonight, it feels like family. I mean, your tears are real, and it's like that's how he touched people. So I know he's the face of many, but I think maybe this unity in this love for him maybe can help get it out there. So, I forgot to say too, there's a hardcover and a soft cover, and I'm going to throw in a searchable PDF on a thumb drive to go with it, because sometimes you might want to search a word and it will make it easier. And so there's one other thing that I did. So Rob had these DVD ROMs. They don't make computers with CD players anymore, which is so annoying. So he was starting to convert things, and so he made these DVD ROMs, and which is like the 6 videos. And then he did the Yahuwah Triangle, which is like a whole bunch of workbooks, timelines, and Babylon Rising, everything. And then there was the Ephraim Awakening, and it has like a whole year's worth of virtual house church. And then Testing the Globe, which I have to fix the book on Amazon because it needs something's wrong with it. But anyway, I took all of these and one more that I forgot to bring, and I did something called the Rob Skiba Legacy Pack, and I put it on a thumb drive. Because computers are not shipping with CD players. It's on a little thumb drive, and I reduced the price. I reduced it to $222. I didn't. My mom was like, we kind of went back and forth. But anyway, this is Rob Skiba's life legacy research. So I've made it half price, and who knows if we can't get on the internet? You have it right here. So I encourage you to look at this as well. And then Jeremiah's book. This is the sweeter story to read first. This is the man that nobody knew except us. But Jeremiah, it's a sweet story about adoption. It really helped Rob understand the Ephraim Awakening. So, and it's a lot of pictures. It was like therapy for me to do this one first because I had to remember the good times, which I needed to because I was in a dark place. So I encourage all of you to read this one first and then this one. And like I said, if you want to send it to somebody and you have access to somebody like Glenn Beck or whoever, I would love to send a complimentary book or, just any advice, any connections, or, let's do it for Rob. Let's do it for all those that died the same way. Because he's at the throne saying, how long? how long, oh Lord, how long is this going to go on? He wanted to see justice in this life. Every time he saw a chemtrail, he was so mad, and because he made him sneeze and cough and stuff. And he said, you know, I think one day he just did a gun and like did that, and then the thing disappeared. And he goes, oh wow, I think that might work. I don't know what that was about, but anyway.
David, Sheila.
And Rob loved this man. Rob loved him. He really did.
Giving Rob to us, just that when I came, I grew up in church. And the first time I knew a man that won't truth, even the dark, the quest for truth,
The Quest for Truth with Doug Hamp is a good one to watch if y'all haven't seen it. It's
just how years and years, just 1,000 miles away. This is my family. You are my sister. You're my mother. You are what a woman should be. Through the in, through the out, the good time, the bad time. You stay with Rob.
This is his wedding ring on my index finger because I'm waiting to put it back on him, just if you want to know. I won't take it off.
I thank you.
Tomorrow is Pentecost. Tomorrow is Pentecost, okay?
I thank you for being that woman, that a man, that Rob, do what God called him to do,
He was a
to
gift.
touch
Yeah, he was a gift.
everybody. So I thank you.
I thank you.